Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Cosmic Cadence. We're your hosts, Geneva.
And I'm Kate, and this is the podcast where we decode the cosmic vibes of your favorite albums and the people that help bring them into the universe.
And today we're focusing on people that help bring this podcast into the universe, if you will.
This is your as promised episode where we will dive in a bit more to our charts to help explain the big three, which is the concept that we will be talking about as we already have been on albums. And as we have more guests on, we'll be diving into their charts as well.
Yeah, but before we dive into others, I guess it's only fair if we dive into ourselves. So, right off the bat, I think we've definitely mentioned this numerous times already on the podcast. We are both Scorpios. And if anyone knows anything about a Scorpio, we are deeply, deeply, deeply private. And secretive is like a negative word, but we like to keep things to ourselves.
Mhm.
So exposing our big three to the world right now is a brave first step.
If you don't know your big three, it can really help you figure out or learn more about who you are as a person, which is why we want to come on here and explain more about this concept. So I guess just a refresher, we'll go through as we go through our signs, we'll go through what each of those big three mean. So we will start with we're both a Scorpio sun. So do you want to explain what a sun sign is?
Sure. So the sun sign is typically the sign that you're most familiar with. If someone asks you, "What's your sign?" and you say, "Well, I'm a Cancer," you're typically talking about your sun sign. Your sun sign really represents your basic ego, your innermost self, who you are deep down in your core, the things that, whether we like it or hate it about ourselves, we can't change because it is our innate nature.
So, on this episode, we're going to use one of our favorite apps called The Pattern to help us describe a bit of what each of these signs mean. Um, Highly suggest if you do not have the pattern yet, you get it. It will tell you a little too much about your life. So be prepared.
Yeah.
It has been so helpful for me going through a lot of times in my life that might have been confusing. It really helps to describe why, based on your chart, you are going through that and what you're meant to learn. But it's scarily accurate. So be prepared for that.
Yeah. It's a funny thing because I think Kate, you tend to use it more in like your day to day.
Yes.
And for me, I'll look at it occasionally and I'll go back to what was happening like a couple weeks ago and then it'll click and you're like, oh, that's why that week sucked. Or like that's why that week was really great. Like the pattern always knows.
You know what's funny is, and we will get into this, but I think that's attributed to my Capricorn moon because I like to be prepared. So
Yeah.
I don't want to have gone through it. I want to be prepared for what's coming. So as mentioned, we will be using the pattern, but unfortunately for both of us, our sun sign doesn't have extra information in the pattern. So I'm going to pull from a different source. But I did want to say in this article, the first sentence I think really describes a Scorpio, and we both, I feel like, relate to this. So here's what it says. Scorpio, which by the way is when you're born between October 23rd and November 21st, is one of the most misunderstood signs of the zodiac, which Geneva already kind of,
Amen.
yes, you described that of, people might view me one way. I almost have two different sides as a Scorpio. But I want to read the rest of this paragraph. So it does say, because of incredible passion and power, Scorpio is often mistaken for a fire sign. In fact, Scorpio is a water sign that derives its strength from the psychic emotional realm. So this is actually interesting because I didn't think about this until recently, but in my chart, and again, we'll go deeper into this, I actually really like my big three because to me, I almost have a bit of each element. So
Mhm.
my sun is a water sign. My moon is an earth sign. My rising is an air sign. But Scorpio to me, I've been realizing is kind of the honorary fire of the zodiac that is not a fire sign.
Yeah. I feel like for me, similar to you, I also love my big three, but unlike you, I am heavily air influenced. But I feel like the passion that comes with being a Scorpio is enough fire for me to have. I don't have too many fire placements in my chart. But having the Scorpio there is definitely more than enough fire energy for me personally. But my moon and my rising are both air signs. So I think, like, deep down in my core, I'm an emotional being, but I don't always feel comfortable showing that to the world.
Same. Yes. 100%. So one of the reasons I think this is so important to me is actually I didn't really get into astrology in any sense until I was in like, let's say, sixth grade. I knew I feel like everyone is born and you probably know your zodiac sign just based off someone tells you it because of the day that you're born. But I knew nothing about what Scorpio meant. And growing up, I loved Halloween. I was very into like learning about witches and all of that kind of thing. And I also felt very intuitive and introspective in a way. So it wasn't until sixth grade where I think we were doing a project and it was almost a deep dive into your zodiac sign. And so I was reading through the traits and I was like, wow, this makes so much sense. Now I understand why I feel these things. And that is why, for me, astrology has been helpful just to make me feel, for lack of a better term, less crazy.
Yeah. I think for me, I probably had a phase of wanting to be anything other than a Scorpio. And then, much like, your frontal lobe just kind of develops one day. I think one day I was just like really fell in love with being a Scorpio before I even understood it. And I remember like going to doctors and dentist offices and like flipping through the cosmos and going straight to the astrology page and like reading the Scorpio thing. And this ties into, years later finding out why, but like reading the horoscope and feeling like, this doesn't sound like my life. This doesn't relate to me at all. But then reading the description of what it meant to be a Scorpio and like understanding that more and like seeing those parts of myself. But it wasn't until a few years ago when I like sat down and really went in on my entire birth chart that it all started to make sense. And I think something that we haven't really talked about yet is like, if you're listening to this podcast and you're deep into astrology like we are, or like you're an occasional astrology, like maybe you only care about your sun sign, or like maybe you don't believe in it at all, we're not here to tell you what to believe or not. But if you change the mindset of looking at astrology as a tool rather than a fortune teller for your life, because that is
Yeah.
definitely not what it is. It helps you figure out different elements of yourself. Like when I started reading about what it meant to have air sign influences, so many things just clicked of like, oh, that's why this is how that worked out, or this is why I feel the way that I do about certain things. So it's just really cool to kind of have this at our disposal and learn more about yourself. Because when you learn more about yourself, it helps you interact with other people. And I think, kind of going back to what you were talking about earlier with like the fire and water influences, when it comes to elements, much like everything in this earth, there is an opposite. And typically, the stereotype is you have um friction with the sign that is opposite to you. So for water signs, it's fire. For ground signs, it's air. That's not to say if you're an air sign and you're married to a ground sign, you guys aren't going to make it, because the other pieces of your chart help balance out those influences. But if you find yourself, maybe always struggling with a Leo or an Aries, and you also happen to be a water sign, that could be why.
I think especially as we get older, in a more, I guess, spiritual sense or whatnot, but the more that you know yourself, I think that is then gives a beautiful opportunity to other people. You can really give them space
Yeah.
to learn and be themselves, be comfortable with that. So really, the more that you know yourself, the more you help other people know and be themselves.
Yeah. And also helps you maneuver around the world, with newfound comfort. Like, granted, I'm still learning new things about myself every day, but when I realized, I don't need to be in the spotlight and that's okay. because of these different things that make up my chart, there's other avenues that I can use to express my creativity or whatever that may be. So,
And I will say also what you said before, you brought up, maybe you're married or dating someone that, you go to look up, are you compatible? And all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I have a 0 out of 100. It's not like that, because truly, like, that's why we talk about the big three. It's not just about your sun sign. So
yeah.
you might hear a stereotype about a sign, but it's not the full picture of who they are. And I actually, for example, Leo is a fire sign. Scorpios are not supposed to get along very well with fire signs. And for me, I love Leos. I know plenty of Leos who are actually quite emotional, but they might have a Cancer moon or a Cancer rising.
Yeah.
So while a Scorpio and a Leo are totally incompatible, well, supposed to be, that might not actually be the case.
Right. And we're a lot more similar, like, than you realize. Like, there's sister signs, like our sister sign is Taurus, but then people say that Virgo and Scorpio also are basically the same sign with a couple things kind of twisted up or turned up in a different direction. Like, if you look at the symbol, it's basically the same thing, except ours has a little tail and the other one is like more of a little elegant leaf, or I don't know how to describe that. But if you look to find the similarities in the signs too, it's kind of like looking to find, this is getting way too deep, but we're Scorpios, we can't help it. You look to find the similarities in people.
Yeah.
And maybe if that's what we did more than looking at the differences, the world would be in a better place. But
I totally agree. But yes, well, it's funny that you said you at points didn't love being a Scorpio, because I I don't I've never wanted to be a different sign. I love that I'm
I
a
will say
Scorpio.
I was a child when I was having these feelings, and
That's
I really
totally
didn't know what
fair.
it meant to be a Scorpio. I just knew, I was like, this sign seems cool. Like, this is a better symbol or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But remember, frontal lobe, man. Once it clicked in, once the Scorpio lobe developed, I was like, I don't want to be anything but a Scorpio. This is
Yeah.
amazing.
I think for me, I loved being a Scorpio um because of my love of all things spooky, but I also really appreciated our innate ability to be, I don't want to use the word psychic. I think I'd rather use the word intuitive, but I think that truly is our power versus, there are other signs that are definitely very intuitive, mostly our fellow water signs of Cancer and Pisces, but I don't know, I feel like Scorpios sometimes too much.
Yeah,
We know things we don't want to know.
You're saying you love it, and sometimes I'm like, I kind of wish I could be just walking through this world obliviously. Like, I have a weird tendency to know things before I know them,
Yeah, same.
or like find out things before I need to, and
Mhm.
then have it revealed to me, and it's like,
Well, I
dang,
knew
I
that.
was kind of hoping that I was wrong for once, but like, not saying I'm always right, but like when it comes to like certain matters, being proven right sucks. But
Yes.
it's that like innate intuitiveness, as you use, it's a superpower, but it's a blessing and a curse at the same time.
To your point though, I think I've heard that Scorpios are known to be a bit stubborn, which can attest, yes, we are, but I almost feel like that's what plays into it. Of unfortunately, we do know things, and unfortunately, we are most of the time right about those because of our strong intuition.
Mhm.
So I feel like that can come across as stubbornness
Mhm.
sometimes.
Yeah, I totally see that. And I feel like, again, like our sister sign Taurus, they are also so fixed signs: Taurus, Aquarius, Scorpio, Leo.
Yeah.
Those are the fixed signs of the zodiac. So they all have that like word stubborn thrown on it. But I think the stubbornness manifests itself differently in all of them. Where if we're gonna put a phrase on it, it's for Scorpio, I know because I know. I think for Leo, it's I know because I'm right.
Mhm.
For Taurus, I know because it's me.
Yeah, because I said so.
And then for Aquarius, it's I know because I thought it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like you almost talk yourself into like being correct into things, where it's like we feel it. You know, like it's in our bones. Like you
Hmm.
feel when something's gonna work out, you feel when something's not gonna work out, you feel when someone's being dishonest, and then all of so on and so forth.
There's a lot of feeling
There's
involved in
too
being a
much feeling in being a
Scorpio.
Scorpio.
I think Cancers could relate to us on that, but there is a
Yes,
lot
it's
of
a
feeling.
different, and again, it's like it's a different kind of feeling. Like cancers, they feel everything. And I think while we feel things, we have better control on our reactions to them. So
Hmm.
while yes, you may make me angry and I feel the anger,
You're gonna hold it in,
I can
probably.
decide to hold it in and not have you know that. I'll
Yeah.
still smile at you. Whereas our lovely cancer brethren, maybe not so lucky. You know, you're gonna see it on their face if you've made them feel a certain way.
Hence
So.
why they get the stereotype of being moody. I will say, I think for me in general, my life path, one thing that I definitely appreciated about being a Scorpio, not that this is only a Scorpio trait or passion, but I think that is why we are so connected to music.
Mm.
I really do attribute that to my Scorpio nature because we feel
Mhm.
it, we feel a lot.
Mhm.
And music is the thing that helps us come to terms with that and process it. And when you're a Scorpio, you have to process.
And it helps you feel understood because
Yes.
Scorpios are
Very,
heavily,
yeah,
heavily misunderstood.
very misunderstood. I think that's like the plight of a Scorpio, feeling misunderstood. Part of that to a negative might be on us of people think that you're secretive, but you're hiding more than you feel like you need to.
Right, because, and I can't believe we're just now getting to this, the biggest trait of being a Scorpio, we have a hard time trusting.
Oh, yes.
And that's where the secretive comes in. Like, and again, I hate the word secretive because, like, secretive to me, it's like you're hiding things like for the sake of hiding things. But
Yeah.
we hide things because, like, we don't know who to trust.
We're
We
just,
have deep
yeah.
trust issues because the saying, forgive but never forget,
Hmm.
never forget. And we may tell you we forgive, but deep down inside, maybe we really haven't,
Yeah.
And we don't take it out, but like it gets projected onto everyone else because we've been wrong once. That means we will be wronged again. And I can't trust this person with this information. And I think if we're talking about the plight of a Scorpio, it is to have to maneuver a world in which you need people,
Right.
but you don't trust them.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I do agree with that. Yeah, well, to your point, I can't believe it took us this long to get to this phrase, but it's true. Like, as a Scorpio, I think this is something to unlearn in our lives, but we can forgive you, but trust we will not forget. I think to your point of the trust though, part of that also is, for example, in love relationships, Scorpios are known to be very loyal. Like, if you are my person, you are my person.
Which I think is the opposite again when we talk about the stereotypes. Everyone's like, oh my God, Scorpios are so promiscuous. And it's just like, actually, no.
Yeah, it's an interesting stereotype. But as we've talked about in our Paramore episode, my heart, it beats only for you.
Mhm.
Um, I think we did attribute that to being a Scorpio because that's how we feel of like we want to be able to trust that person and put all of our, well, I guess Scorpios are also known to be a little bit obsessive.
Yeah.
Whether that's with a person or an interest, I think that's a stereotype of Scorpios that you find something that you really love and you go deep into it, which,
All in.
I think it's a positive and obviously there's a negative, but it's also kind of a positive to be able to be that passionate about something.
Yeah.
But, I think another thing that I appreciate about being a Scorpio is they say still waters run deep. I think that is the perfect line to describe a Scorpio of I really appreciate that we are made, not every Scorpio, again, it depends on your whole chart makeup, but we really do have the power of um I want to say like silence and listening and empathy.
Yeah. I think too, um, when you think of the stereotypes that people put on Scorpios of like they love revenge, they're mean and all of that, going back to what you're saying about still waters run deep, it's like we only strike if you give us a reason to, much like a real
I
Scorpio.
was gonna
Like
say,
if you're
yeah,
not messing
Scorpio.
with it, they're not gonna bother you.
Yeah.
But if you're in its face, and even then you get maybe 1, 2 chances, and then the stinger comes out, I feel like, and this is something that we both kind of bonded over in our experiences of like being in environments where the expectation is to be loud and in your face. And then you have us who listen, interpret, respond, listen again. Like it's such a different thing that not everybody has. And sadly, especially in a business world, not everybody appreciates. But yeah, it's being a Scorpio is tough, but what balances it out, I think if we both were like triple Scorpios in our big three, we'd be having a hard time. Even though it's just our sun sign, or out of the big three, it's just our sun. Everything, like every video that we see, every horoscope we read, it's like the moon is doing this. Therefore, Scorpio, get ready. It's gonna be hard. You're gonna get transformed again.
Well,
But
isn't Pluto, right? Does Pluto no, wait. Scorpio is ruled by, is it
Pluto
Pluto or
and Mars,
Mars?
it's both.
Okay, see, that's why.
Yeah.
For anyone listening, if you don't, those are tough planets.
Yeah.
I think this is a great note to end on, at least for the Scorpio portion, because you know what the ultimate life of a Scorpio is? Death and rebirth. That is why the tarot card
Yeah. Is death.
is death, because Scorpios, throughout our lives, we are known to go through something and you transform because of that. So again, for better or for worse, I think that's why Scorpios have power, because
We've kind of been through it all.
exactly
We've been through a lot.
yeah, you go through a lot. Not to say other people don't, obviously, but it's just when you're born into this world as a Scorpio, you're born into a life of transformation.
Yeah, it's kind of, so maybe we can talk about this on another episode, but it's each sign represents a different phase in life, right? And like start Aries, it's basically like the newborn, the baby, and go all the way to Pisces, the old man, old woman, whatever, lived 1,000 lives. You know all the traits from before. For whatever reason, Scorpio's kind of not even really in the middle, but like kind of somewhere in the middle. And our plight, our thing that we have to carry is to die and then be born again a million times in this lifetime.
I
To
think
learn whatever lesson it is, and then we can move on and become Sagittarius in our next life.
I do think, right, Scorpios, which this is kind of badass, but we're associated with the Phoenix.
Yes, yes. So the sign, like the symbol, I guess, or like the sign itself has like 3 different phases. So we're Scorpio and we evolve into an eagle, and then eventually we become a phoenix. And when I saw that, I was mad because I was like, Scorpio's kind of cool. Why do I have to be a bird for a little bit? But then I become a phoenix, so it's whatever, it's chill.
I mean, eagles can be cool.
I don't like birds.
I forgot. Geneva hates birds.
They scare me, dude.
Well, that, this is why you were born into this life, to overcome your fear of
to
birds.
become an eagle, be one with the birds. I think on that note, we should talk about what mellows us out, though, and having those extra signs in our big three who help make us into the people we are.
Yes. So we will move on to moon sign,
Mhm.
which for me, I am a Capricorn moon, and Capricorn is probably second or even above Scorpio in terms of being a quote unquote darker sign.
Yeah.
There's just a lot.
There's a lot that
involved.
comes, and I will say, fun fact, I hate Kate's Capricorn moon with
She
a
does.
passion.
Well, you know what's funny? I've thought about this. I think my Capricorn moon is in direct opposition to your Aquarius rising.
It is.
So Capricorn is like, well, okay, so Capricorn, I believe, is ruled by Saturn, which is the taskmaster, which is, we love rules, we love structure.
Yeah.
And it's very much, for me, everyone makes fun of me because I have so many lists, which I guess is also kind of a Virgo trait. They might be able to relate on that. But yeah, there's just a lot of structure, lists, rules. That's kind of what the world of Capricorn is. Whereas Aquarius is much more the complete opposite of more like thoughts and
Yeah.
dreams.
So why don't we flip it and you'll talk about your Capricorn moon, I'll talk about my Aquarius rising, and then we'll flip for your rising and my moon since it's shared. I'm an Aquarius rising, and when I found that out, first I was like, shout out to Aaliyah because she also was an Aquarius rising, and she was like the first music artist that knocking on being an obsessive Scorpio I was obsessed with. So when I found out we had that shared big three, I was very excited. And then after the celebration of being excited, I actually dove into reading what it meant, and it clicked. To divert for a second, when I first did my chart, I thought I was a Virgo rising, and I read everything and I was like, this is not me. I don't like why am I a Virgo rising? This doesn't make sense. And then I actually got my birth chart and I saw the time I was born, and I was like, not my birth chart, my birth certificate, saw my actual birth time. I thought I was born AM, I was PM.
Yes.
And that makes a difference, guys. When you're doing your charts, you need the exact time.
Because it changes every 2 hours.
It is every 2 hours. But when I saw Aquarius rising, it all made sense to me. And I was like, this is why I always feel like an alien. But tell us a little more about your Capricorn moon.
Well, first, I think we should, I know we went into this again on the first episode, but for the people, do you want to describe what your moon and rising sign mean, just in case you haven't listened yet?
So your moon sign is your inner emotional self. It's kind of how you deal with, it's like your inner thoughts on the world. It's how you handle your emotions, how that comes across. And the ascendant is how the world sees you. So it's the projection. So kind of going back to the story of like how when I first met Kate, I didn't think she was a Scorpio. That was her ascendant coming through. But we'll dive in on that a little bit later. But they say, and I don't know, you know, how it manifests for each of us. I'm sure it manifested differently. They say when you're a child, your ascendant sign is the most important and it's more prominent then. And then as you get older, your sun sign becomes more important. But now the I don't even know, the astrological gurus of the world are saying the moon sign is more important now. I think they're all important.
Yeah,
They're all
important.
pieces of the puzzle. But the older you get, certain elements become more prominent. And I think for me, looking back on my childhood, realizing I was an Aquarius ascendant, a lot of things make sense. And
Mhm.
even now, like how I operate in certain situations, how I feel about myself, like being an Aquarius rising makes so much sense.
And I will say too, I have heard actually your rising sign is almost what you were meant, like when you embody your rising sign, that's almost your goal in life.
Mhm.
That's
It's what what you should be aspiring to be.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, so as mentioned, we're going to use the pattern for some of these. So just to read you some of the traits of a Capricorn moon. It says driven, disciplined, responsible, and ambitious, which I feel all of those things. When I found out about my Capricorn moon, I was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense because I definitely had a problem with like I cannot stop working. But in a positive, I love working. I really do. I love working on projects nonstop. But the con side of that is that then I would never take a break and I would fully overwork myself, and that is not healthy.
No.
Don't do that. Um, but I think that being honest, I definitely felt the burden of responsibility. I do feel like in most situations I can take on that role. Um, and it can be hard always, when you feel like you have to always rely on yourself or others always rely on you versus it would be nice sometimes to be like, okay, I can let go and like not feel that pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that has a lot to do with the ruler of Capricorn.
Yes.
I think I love Capricorns. I just want to say they're one of my favorite signs. Some of my favorite people are Capricorns.
Haley
Williams is a Capricorn. Aaliyah was a Capricorn, just saying. But I think much like our plight as a Scorpio is to die and then come back again. Um, Capricorns are the rule enforcers,
Yes.
traditionalist, taskmaster. Like, you guys are the ones that no, it has to go this way because those are the rules. That's how it's always been. And it's hard to deviate from that. And I think for you, that definitely represents in like the need to complete the job because it has to be completed before I can
Yes.
do this thing. And I have
Yeah.
to do this before and I have to make a list to do this. And while, yes, in some instances it is very helpful, in some parts, again, like you said, and now that you're saying it, I'm thinking about it, I really do think while we get along famously, where friction does come is because
Yeah.
the ascendant and your moon are very opposite.
But in a way, that's also good
It's why
because
we
complete.
work.
Yeah.
Yes. I think we are, and again, going back to what you were saying earlier about like Scorpios not supposed to really, Scorpios are not supposed to be good together in business
At all. Yeah.
and I think because we have these other elements, it works because where one lacks, the other makes up, and vice versa. And I think where you can keep us structured, I don't think this podcast would be in your ears right now if Kate wasn't a part of it, because she's like, I have the spreadsheet. Here's where the
I love
passwords go. Here's the
spreadsheets.
login and all that. Or like even planning, we've planned multiple events together before, and she's like, I'm like, it's easy. This is all we have to do. You do this thing, this thing, this thing, and we're there. Boom. And she's like, well, no, let's break it down. And first we got to do this, and then we'll create a spreadsheet for this. And I'm just like, hating it in the moment, but then you fast forward to when you actually need the thing and it's nice to have it there. So
And that is the balance though, because without you on the contrary, like I would probably go crazy if I was, so it's kind of nice to have that balance of you do need someone who's kind of more of the dreamer and you're also always there to remind me of like, Kate, it's fine.
yeah,
Like
a perfect example, creating this logo, Kate designed it. Great job.
thank
Looks
you.
beautiful. But it took a while to get to that point because she's looking at it and she's like,
I
I
need
see
it to be
rough
perfect.
the color is off. And I'm just like, it looks fine. Like we just gotta put it up. We can change it
I
later,
hope you all like it.
but the Capricorn moon and needing the
Yeah.
structure and needing to follow the rules, it has to be perfect before it can be seen. But I think, we need Capricorn moons in this world. We need the people that know the rules and how to follow them and can make things happen by focusing on the details. I think if one thing can be said is you are extremely detail oriented. And while you have like the dream qualities where you can see the big picture, you care more about the details
Yes.
to create the big picture.
Yeah. Would totally agree with that. I would say it's almost the curse of perfectionism, which
Yeah.
other signs feel as well, for sure. But, I know this isn't necessarily a tarot podcast, but I think there is helpful information in that as well. And I do believe that Capricorn, the devil card is associated with Capricorn. So again,
Yeah.
death and the devil are my sun and my moon. So, no pressure there. But the devil is associated with addictions and
Yeah.
whatnot, so it is almost like an addiction to overachieving or perfectionism, all of that. So there, like we said, there's positives and negatives to everything. I actually have learned, I think one of my goals in life has been to come to terms with my Capricorn moon and really appreciate like what it can do for me. Like to your point, I wouldn't be where I am in life, I think, without that ambitious quality, but also learning the balance.
Yeah.
And that is where my ascendant comes in. But first, let's talk more about your ascendant.
Gladly. So, as mentioned, I'm an Aquarius rising. We are a rare people, apparently, because while most ascendant signs change every 2 hours, I think the switch over for Aquarius is a lot tighter. Which again, my little Aquarius rising self loves being unique. And going off of what it's saying here in the pattern, ascendant in Aquarius is all about freedom and uniqueness. Your destiny is to find freedom by embracing your individuality. You have the ability to stand apart from others and live according to your own ideas, whether you acknowledge it or not. There's a side of you that's different and unconventional. You can adapt to many situations as long as you have the space to detach mentally and retreat into your own world. You have an optimistic side and you can often see solutions more clearly than most people. Your greatest potential lies in embracing what sets you apart. And as someone who always slightly feels like the odd duck, no matter the scenario, no matter the space, from friends to work to like I just never feel like I belong. And for the longest time, it was something I struggled with. But when I learned it was a trait of an Aquarius rising, I was like, it all makes sense.
I was
We are
gonna
born
say,
to be different, and that's okay.
yeah, I think most Aquariuses I know actually relate on that. So again, that's why I think it's important or helpful to learn the traits of other or learn the signs, let's say, of other people, because then you can, have camaraderie or commiserate
Yes.
on those elements.
Yes. I think as also some other shades for Aquarius is they tend to be, and this is maybe something again different. Um, they love humanity.
Hmm.
They're always for the betterment of the people and the good of the people. And while I would love for humanity to thrive and would love the good of the people and all of world peace, all of that stuff, we have a running joke, especially when we're at shows. I hate to be amongst the people. But I think deep down, if I really sat and looked within, like finding ways to help and be charitable, like that is a huge part of the Aquarius nature, as well as intelligence. They are very smart.
You
It's
guys are
like
big thinkers.
big thinkers,
Yeah.
that's the word. Big thinkers, heavy on let me think this through before I say anything. And I have missed many a moment to have come back with a witty like snap back or whatever. Overthinking,
Overthinking. Oh yeah.
shared traits between Aquarius and Scorpio. And I think for me, I'm still, because life is a journey. And as we know, Scorpios, we are constantly being reborn.
Hmm.
I am still working to get to that era where I am fully comfortable in being an individual. And I think I'm getting there.
Hmm.
Like I've realized, for example, my life path is very different from a lot of my friends or like people that I went to high school with. And while there's no such thing as being behind in life, like sometimes you can think that, but when you realize, like, no, I'm just moving to the beat of my own drum and doing things a little differently, and that's okay, and I can be comfortable with that. That's something that Aquarians don't even think of that. It's like, no, I'm doing this thing to be my own thing, and that's fine. And another thing, and this might sound a little negative, but we love being different and standing out. And the biggest insult you can do, I think, to an Aquarius rising, speaking from myself, is to copy them. I hate
Yeah.
being copied. It is the worst feeling in the world. They say copying is a form of flattery or whatever it is. No, it's not. Don't copy me. Don't bite me. Don't rip me off. Like I hate that. I do not like it.
Yeah. I can understand that. But that's why I feel like Aquariuses are the world needs them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just feel like I love that, and somewhat what we were talking about with Scorpio. I don't want this to sound too cheesy, but it's true of like, yeah, like you being yourself helps others be themselves. And
Yeah.
I think that's so important in this life because I don't know why this is the stereotype. I don't agree with it, but like, why do we all want to be the same? Like,
Yeah.
life is so much more interesting when you're yourself and really embody your unique traits and learn from other people. And yeah, I love that about Aquariuses.
Yeah, I love it too. I love being an Aquarius rising. You talked about loving being a Scorpio. I love my victory mostly because I'm an Aquarius rising. I love being an Aquarius rising.
I love that for you. Even though sometimes you clash with my Capricorn, it's fine.
It's fine. We make it work. It's fine.
We make it work.
You know why it works? Because we have a shared side in our big
True.
three.
Very true.
Should we say it at the same time?
Okay, on three. Three. Wait, I'm in on one. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Libra.
So I'm a Libra moon.
And I am a Libra rising or ascendant, as we said.
Yeah, I think we can use it interchangeably. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's nice to say rising.
It's hard to say ascendant.
It's hard. It's
I
not
don't
a
want to
word
say
that's in
ascendant.
my vocabulary on a day
Yeah.
to day, to be real. I think that goes back to when I first met you. My first impression was, oh, she's a Libra. Like she's too nice. Like she's so bubbly. Like she loves people. And then when I don't know how, maybe we celebrated your birthday. I don't know how I found out you were a Scorpio. I was like, yes.
That's funny. I get that more often than not, which is funny. Like most people, when I tell them I'm a Scorpio, they're like, "Oh, I would not have guessed that," which makes me a little sad because I do love my Scorpio side. But honestly, I also really love my Libra side. And I think, I mean, it makes sense because I think in life, as I've gotten older, I've realized the goal of my life is to come into that energy of my rising sign and really embrace being that more outgoing person, which I think that's why I felt the struggle growing up is because my Scorpio side, is very introverted and my Libra rising is very extroverted. So actually, fun fact, I did a personality quiz recently, the Myers-Briggs, and it gave you the percent of how introverted and extroverted you are. I am 51% extroverted and 49% introverted.
That's so funny.
Like that,
so
right?
funny, yeah.
And that's why I'm like, oh my God, I feel split down the middle all the time. So
But
it's
it
hard.
makes sense.
It does make
You
sense,
love
but it's
the
hard.
people. The people give you energy.
I know. But that's the thing. It will for a matter of time. But then once I have gone through that,
Once you're at the 51%,
I'm like, nope, social battery off. I will not see you for 2 weeks. Do not talk to me. And then I come back out of the shell.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, hi, I'm ready to talk to you for another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then the cycle continues. But yes, I have learned that I actually really do love, as we say, the people. I love to be amongst the people. I love learning about people. I love to do things for the people, which I think similarly to what you said about Aquarius, Libras are also very humanitarian, and we both just want to help others.
Yeah. We just want peace.
Yeah.
We just
Peace
want
and
balance, equality. The scales. For me, with it being my moon and that tying into my emotions and how I think of things, I struggle when things aren't fair and they don't make sense. That is my biggest gripe as a Libra moon. Like, if it's not 1 + 1 = 2, I can't do it. And I know this world, it's not black and white, it's a gray world. And I can see through the gray because Scorpio, very perceptive. I know too much. But the Libra in me, it's like, why can't he have the piece of chocolate? It's his, it's like that kind of stuff, like, just drives me insane. And if things don't make sense, like if you have an easy way, but you want to take the most convoluted route, my brain will just implode. So I think I think us having that shared sign in Libra is also why we connected and are able to coexist. Because going to the pattern for their description for
I'm curious what it's because since we both have Libra, like what it will say differently.
So for me, going back to the patterns explanation, moon and Libra, the 2 words, never heard 2 words describe Libra so well. Likable or codependent. Because Libras are people pleasers.
Very
And
much so.
they just want to be liked. To the point where they also could come off as being codependent and needing another person.
Yeah.
I have definitely seen both sides of that, of like wanting to be agreeable. I hate conflict, which, my Scorpio inner self probably is like fighting with my Libra moon every day. But I hate conflict. I just want everyone to get along. I try to take the path of least resistance because I just want to be liked. I think deep down, we just want to be liked. And in doing that, sometimes you need another person to help edge that, along, of like, at least I'm not alone. This person likes me, like, especially when you're going into new spaces. And I think that has come across in my life a lot. But continuing the rest of the summary, at your best, you're an expert in relationships. You're extremely personal and easily relate to others. You're a good networker and have great social skills. You're charming and socially adept and driven to prove you are this way. Alternatively, when you're struggling, it feels like your friends, family, or society expects you to present yourself a certain way, like you get stuck playing a role that people project on you. Okay, dang, rip me apart pattern. At times, it can feel like you can't break out of the box people put you in, that no one truly knows you. Oh my God. Okay, your friends
this
might.
Is why. Pause here for a plus. This is why you need the pattern, but also sometimes it's too much.
It's too real. I'm like, oh my, okay, I wasn't expecting this read on my life. Your friendships might not be as authentic as you'd like them to be. It's possible your romantic relationships or family life appear to be perfect from the outside, but inside you feel trapped and confined. I need a minute. I
feel too seen.
I feel too seen. Okay, I guess let's break this down. The first part, heavily relate. Like, I think, well, okay, let me not sound too cocky. I don't think I'm charming whatsoever, but it's nice
Yes, you
to see
are.
that I have that quality. But I do feel like I can easily relate to others.
Oh yeah,
And I
that's one of your strengths, 100%.
but I always equated that to the Scorpio in me.
Mm-hmm.
But to see that it's the Libra moon
That
makes
makes
so
sense.
much more
Yeah.
sense. And I think I think being a Scorpio sun, it's like this. It kind of makes it teeter
Well,
tatter
that's what
where
I
I want
meant
to
too. Yeah.
relate to people and like I can relate to people, but then it makes me kind of like psychoanalyze and overthink and kind of just like go to a dark place because of the Scorpio part where
Yeah.
it's
As I said,
hard.
it's the differences really can drive you insane.
Yeah. So that's cool to see. However, when it took the turn that it did about the struggle of being a Libra moon, this is too almost too real because I feel like a lot of times I think similar to what you talked about where people see you in one way and they never want to change that.
Hmm.
So you almost feel like you have to play up to it. Like
Yeah.
I'll admit there's been times where I have been told, you're too shy, you're too quiet, blah, 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 blah. So it's just like, okay, so I'll never speak because if I speak, then you'll make a big deal out of it. And I don't want you to make a big deal out of it. So I'll just keep playing this role of this shy, quiet person that never speaks. And it gets to a point where it's like, you don't always want to be that,
Yeah.
like you want to like show your full self.
Especially as
But
you're evolving in life.
exactly when you're dying and being born again, like you have
That's
to. I
Scorpio.
need you to know. I think that I'm so okay. You talk about being a Libra rising
I'll
because
let you
I need to
process for a
reflect and
minute.
process on my
Okay, well, you know
struggles.
what? I think this will actually help you because this, I mean, it makes sense since we are both Libra. I can see both the similarities and the differences in it being your moon, my rising. So I'm going to paraphrase here, but it's interesting because for my rising, the pattern, the summary is a lot about basically it's talking about I find meaning in my relationships,
Mm,
whether that's family, friends, love, relationships, all of the above. And it's important for me to feel understood and loved for who I genuinely am. It also says that relationships are my path to development, knowledge, and awakening. And it talks about learning to become your own best partner in life.
yeah.
So it's a lot of what we already said of I think that um my growth point in life has truly been learning to grow out of the codependency because that's definitely something that I and most people I feel like probably most Libras, it is the people pleasing and the codependency that you experience in life. And then when you're on this growth journey, you really do learn to find the traits that you value in others in yourself. And that's how you evolve as a
Yeah.
person. And I think most people since the pandemic, especially, have been on that journey. And I can say that I have really grown through that in these past couple years, and I'm happy to be here because now I think that when you are codependent on people, it's almost counterintuitive of it causes more friction
Mhm.
because in the people pleasing manner, they always say the phrase like you say yes but it's a no,
Mhm.
it's still a no.
Mhm.
So, if someone invites you out somewhere and you say, sure, I'll go, but really you want to just stay home, you're going to go out and you're going to be
And you're gonna have a
sour
terrible
about it.
time. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not, it's a detriment in both ways. Whereas if you just stay true to yourself and you say no when you mean no, you and the other person will be better and happier people for that. So I think that's been really the growth of my Libra rising of standing true to myself and my decisions. Libras also have a hard time making decisions. So really just yeah, as you like grow in your own power, you know what you want, you can speak up for what you want. And I think that is how you help yourself and other people grow. And I will say the other part of this, I think that's why I leaned into relationships and branching out and really tapping into my extroverted side because I do agree with the pattern here of like these kind of conversations
Yeah.
really help me as a person.
Yeah.
Like, I think that, there is a side or a way to learn more about yourself when it's introspective. And of course, you do have to do that personal work where it's just you thinking through things. But conversations for me are really like, but yeah, similarly to what you said, I always kind of attributed that to my Scorpio side,
Mhm.
but now I can see, thanks to the pattern, how my Libra side, it really is, finding, you were talking about before, finding those traits in another person,
Yeah.
finding the similarities. And I think that for me, I'm just someone who, when I speak about what's going on in my life or how I'm feeling, and
Mhm.
someone can mirror that back to me, that is where I learn so much. And I
Yeah.
have so many insights in my life from that.
I first want to say non-spawn from the pattern would love to be sponsored by the
Yeah,
pattern.
no,
So
we just
like
love the pattern.
we love the pattern. But when you read that line, it was like an instant, oh my God, that is so Kate. Because you have had so many conversations when you come back and you're like, and it made me realize this. Like
Mhm.
you do thrive on like communication and relationships and like speaking with people, as we say. So that's crazy. Because I guess I never thought too much of like what to attribute it to, but like to hear you say you attribute it to being Scorpio is not a surprise. Because I would have been like, yeah, it's Scorpio, it's going deep, it's having that, but like
Right.
it makes so much more sense as your Libra rising. Like
Mhm.
that's the pattern. We love the pattern.
We love the pattern. And I mean, but I feel like, this is where um I don't think it even matters what your sign is. Like, this is talking about feeling, you want to feel understood and loved for who you genuinely are. Like, I
Mhm.
think, is that not what any human
That's what
wants
we
in this
all
life?
want. Yeah. So that was deep diving on our big threes, thanks to the pattern. For recap, hi, my name is Geneva. I'm a Scorpio sun, Aquarius rising, and a recovering Libra moon.
She's still processing
So-
her the truth bomb that the pattern dropped on her. And I, Kate, am a Scorpio sun, Capricorn moon, and Libra rising.
Yes. I think going back to something you said earlier about knowing you were Scorpio and loving that you were Scorpio. If you could be any sun sign other than Scorpio, what would it be?
You're asking the hard questions. Um, I will say, okay, this is not my answer, but the number of times I have been mistaken for a Virgo are too many. I think it's the combination of my well, not even a combination. I think it's my Capricorn moon somehow that
Mhm.
gets mixed up. Like, again, it's the when someone hears that I have a spreadsheet, they're like, "Oh, this girl's a Virgo."
Yeah.
But that is not me. I am a Scorpio, but I would say Libra, actually. I
Interesting.
want to be a Libra. Um, so I do, okay, so I love my Libra rising because to my understanding, um, both Beyonce and Britney Spears are also both
Yes.
Libra risings. So love the power there. But I love that Libras are outgoing and friendly.
Mhm.
Like I would really want to keep that friendly characteristic that I
Yeah.
have. I really appreciate that. And I like that. I feel like hopefully one of my strengths is making people feel comfortable
Yeah.
um in conversation and whatnot. So yeah, I think that I'd want to be a Libra.
I love that. So my Libra moon wants me to say Libra for, the sense of being liked. But my answer is Capricorn. Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know why I have an affinity towards the Capricorn energy. I think probably because it's about as dark as Scorpios are. I have the capacity to be structured,
Mhm.
but I would love that to just be an innate thing, instead of having to work at it. Like I would love for my natural instinct to be, let me make a spreadsheet. Let
Yeah.
me make a chart and organize and make sure everybody's good and take control of the situation and follow the leader, and not necessarily leader in the like the Aries or like Scorpio power way, but leader of like, I want to make sure this is a good situation for all parties involved. Let me take care of like, I wish I had more of that in me. I feel like Capricorns have that, and I wish I was a Capricorn if I couldn't be a Scorpio.
Well, the way that you said that reminded me, which is definitely something that I felt like I at times took on, but it gives me like school project vibes.
Yes.
Grade school through college of when you're in the group projects, you might not be the loudest one, but you are always the one who will take charge.
Yeah.
No matter the situation.
That
like
was never me.
Yeah, it was always me. Like, we have 5 people and it's like, okay, well, no one wants to pick something, so I'm gonna divvy out like, here's what has to be done. Whose strength is this?
Yeah.
Let's make this all work. But no one ever wants to call that,
Yeah.
So it gives me school project vibes. But when you first said that, I was very thrown off because as we said, you hate my Capricorn moon, but I love that. That shows growth.
I hate it because I envy it.
Yeah. Well, I think that just shows a great growth point. And I think as we talked about, for most of my life, being a Scorpio, I did relate to the more introverted nature of mine. But I think as I've grown in life, I really have come into more of the extroverted nature. So I think that you're in your growth, you're always drawn to the opposite in a way.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. I think we've talked about ourselves enough.
Yeah, remember when we started this and you're like, we're Scorpios, we're so private. We hate talking about ourselves.
We just gave you way too much information.
We're gonna post this and then be like, oh God, never mind.
Like, this will never air. But if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. You've been tuned in to another episode of the Cosmic Cadence podcast.
We hope that this was helpful. If you have similar signs to us, let us know. Would love to hear from more fellow Scorpio suns, or if you had a moon or rising sign. Hopefully, if you don't know much about it, we helped you understand it a bit more. And if you are not our signs,
tell us more about yourself.
Definitely comment on our posts, and we want to hear from you. As we mentioned, we'll have more episodes with other guests on, and we'll be going into their signs. So if we didn't talk about your sign today, obviously at some point we will most likely talk about your sign at some point. But yeah, hopefully you learned something from this today. Also, hopefully if you're one of those people out there, I know that there are people out there that do not like Scorpios. Hopefully we can change your mind.
Yeah.
We're not that bad.
Are we nice Scorpios? Tell us. Maybe don't. We can't handle that emotionally. No. You'll destroy us if you don't like us. The Libra and both of us can't handle it.
Hopefully you learned something today.
Yeah. Follow us on socials. Find all the info in the bio.
And we'll see you next time.